Galileo Galilei was born in Pisa in 1564, the same year Shakespeare was born and Michelangelo died. His father was a musician and mathematician who taught him to question authority and trust only what could be demonstrated through evidence. It was a dangerous philosophy in an age when the Catholic Church claimed absolute authority over the nature of the universe, and it would lead Galileo into a confrontation that would define the boundary between science and power for centuries to come. As a young professor of mathematics, Galileo was already a troublemaker. He publicly challenged Aristotle's claim that heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones, reportedly by dropping objects of different weights from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, though this famous story may be legend. What is certain is that he conducted careful experiments with inclined planes, rolling balls down sloped surfaces, and measuring their acceleration with water clocks. He proved that all objects accelerate at the same rate regardless of their weight, demolishing a belief that had stood unchallenged for 2,000 years. In 1609, Galileo heard reports of a new invention from the Netherlands, a tube with lenses that could make distant objects appear close. Within days, he built his own version and improved it dramatically. He turned this telescope toward the sky, and what he saw shattered the medieval cosmos. The moon was not a perfect celestial sphere, but a rugged world covered in mountains and craters. Jupiter was orbited by 4 moons of its own, proving that not everything in the heavens revolved around the Earth. Venus showed phases like the moon, which could only be explained if it orbited the sun. Galileo published his findings in the Starry Messenger in 1610, and the book made him the most famous scientist in Europe overnight. He was invited to Rome, where cardinals peered through his telescope and marveled. But the implications were terrifying to the Church. If the Earth was not the center of the universe, if it was merely one planet among many orbiting the sun as Copernicus had proposed decades earlier, then the entire theological framework that placed humanity at the center of God's creation was called into question. The Church warned Galileo in 1616 to stop promoting the Copernican model as physical reality. He obeyed outwardly for 16 years. But in 1632, encouraged by a new pope he believed to be sympathetic, Galileo published his dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems. The book was a masterpiece of scientific argument disguised as a conversation between 3 characters. The defender of the old Earth-centered model was named Simplicio, the simpleton, and the Pope was furious to discover that some of Simplicio's arguments were ones he himself had made in private conversations. Galileo was summoned before the Roman Inquisition in 1633. He was 69 years old and in failing health. Under threat of torture, he was forced to kneel and publicly recant his belief that the Earth moves around the sun. Legend says that as he rose from his knees, he muttered under his breath, "And yet it moves." Whether or not he actually spoke those words, they became the most famous whisper in the history of science, a declaration that truth does not bend to power. Galileo spent the last 9 years of his life under house, arrested at his villa outside Florence. He went completely blind but continued working, dictating his final masterpiece on the science of motion to a devoted student. He died on January 8, 1642. That same year, in a farmhouse in England, Isaac Newton was born. The torch had been passed, and the revolution Galileo ignited would burn on until it consumed the old world entirely and built a new one founded on observation, experiment, and the courage to see what is truly there.